September 11, 2001. This date is forever seared into the collective memory of the world. It marked a turning point in history, a day when the world watched in horror as terrorism struck at the heart of America. The events of this day would have profound and lasting consequences, reshaping international relations, security measures, and the very fabric of modern society. The perpetrators of the 9/11 attacks were members of Al-Qaeda, an Islamic extremist terrorist group. Al-Qaeda was led by Osama bin Laden, a Saudi Arabian millionaire turned militant. Bin Laden had declared a holy war against the United States, citing their military presence in the Middle East and support for Israel as justification for his actions. The 9/11 attacks were the culmination of years of planning and preparation by Al-Qaeda, meticulously designed to inflict maximum damage and instill widespread fear. The attacks were a stark demonstration of the growing threat of global terrorism and the dangers posed by extremist ideologies. The 9/11 attacks involved 4 commercial airplanes, all of which departed from airports on the east coast of the United States. The aircraft were hijacked shortly after takeoff by teams of Al-Qaeda terrorists who had infiltrated the flights posing as passengers. Armed with knives and box cutters, they overpowered the flight crews and seized control of the planes, turning these ordinary vessels of travel into weapons of mass destruction. American Airlines Flight 11, en route from Boston to Los Angeles, was the first to strike. At 8:46 a.m. Eastern Time, it crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. The impact, which occurred between the 93rd and 99th floors, sent shockwaves through the city and beyond. Less than 20 minutes later, at 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175, also originating from Boston and bound for Los Angeles, slammed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. This time, the impact occurred between the 77th and 85th floors, igniting a massive fire. The world watched in disbelief as both towers of the World Trade Center, once symbols of American economic power and ingenuity, were engulfed in flames. The attacks of September 11th resulted in a staggering loss of life. The official death toll stands at 2,977, a grim testament to the human cost of that tragic day. Among the victims were citizens from over 90 countries, highlighting the global reach of the tragedy. At the World Trade Center, 2,753 people were killed, including first responders who bravely rushed into the burning towers to aid in evacuation efforts. At the Pentagon, 184 lives were lost, including military personnel and civilian employees. And in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, the 40 passengers and crew members aboard Flight 93 perished when their plane crashed into a field. The immediate aftermath of the attacks was one of shock, grief, and disbelief. As the dust settled, the world grappled with the enormity of the loss and the realization that everything had changed. The attacks had exposed the vulnerability of even the most powerful nation to the threat of terrorism. Section 5. The dawn of the War on Terror. The 9/11 attacks served as a catalyst for the global war on terror. Under the leadership of President George W. Bush, the United States declared a war against terrorism, vowing to hunt down those responsible for the attacks and dismantle terrorist networks worldwide. The first military action in the war on terror was the invasion of Afghanistan, launched in October 2001. The objective was to remove the Taliban regime from power. The Taliban had provided safe haven to Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. The war on terror expanded to other countries, including Iraq, Somalia, and Yemen. It involved a multifaceted approach that included military strikes, intelligence gathering, and efforts to counter extremist ideologies. Section 6. Forging a shield of security. In the wake of the 9/11 attacks, the United States undertook sweeping changes to its security apparatus. These changes were aimed at preventing future terrorist attacks and enhancing national security. One of the most significant developments was the creation of the Department of Homeland Security. Established in November 2002, DHS consolidated 22 existing federal agencies into a single cabinet-level department. Its mission is to protect the nation from terrorism, natural disasters and other threats. Another key piece of legislation was the USA Patriot Act, passed in October 2001. This act expanded the surveillance powers of law enforcement agencies, making it easier for them to track suspected terrorists. It also made it easier to detain and deport non-citizens suspected of terrorism-related activities. Section 7. A world transformed. The 9/11 attacks and the subsequent war on terror had a profound impact on global politics and international relations. The attacks heightened tensions between the United States and several countries in the Middle East and North Africa. The war on terror led to protracted military interventions in Afghanistan and Iraq, destabilizing these countries and contributing to the rise of new extremist groups. The use of drone strikes and other controversial tactics in the war on terror also sparked debates about human rights and the limits of American power. Moreover, the 9/11 attacks contributed to a climate of fear and mistrust, both domestically and internationally. The attacks led to increased security measures at airports and other public places, often at the expense of personal privacy. Racial profiling and discrimination against Muslims also became more prevalent in the aftermath of the attacks. Section 8. Unveiling the Truth, Investigations and Reports. In the years following the 9/11 attacks, there were numerous investigations and inquiries aimed at understanding what happened, why it happened, and how to prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. Perhaps the most comprehensive investigation was conducted by the 9/11 Commission, an independent bipartisan commission created by the US government. The Commission's report, released in 2004, provided a detailed account of the events leading up to the attacks, identifying intelligence failures, security lapses, and other factors that contributed to the tragedy. The 9/11 Commission's recommendations led to further reforms in intelligence sharing, aviation security, and counter-terrorism strategies. However, debates continue about whether enough has been done to address the root causes of terrorism and prevent future attacks. Section 9. The Enduring Legacy of 9/11. 2 decades after the 9/11 attacks, their legacy continues to shape the world in profound ways. The attacks forever altered the landscape of international relations, security, and the fight against terrorism. The war on terror, launched in response to the attacks, has had far-reaching consequences, both intended and unintended. It has led to the toppling of regimes, the deaths of countless civilians, and the displacement of millions more. The 9/11 attacks also serve as a stark reminder of the human capacity for both good and evil. In the face of unimaginable tragedy, we witnessed extraordinary acts of courage, compassion, and resilience. First responders risked their lives to save others. Ordinary citizens stepped up to help those in need, and communities came together to grieve and rebuild. The lessons of 9/11 continue to resonate today, urging us to remain vigilant against the threat of terrorism, work towards a more peaceful and just world, and never forget the victims of that tragic day.